Imagine yourself standing on the edge of a battlefield. The sun is burning the earth beneath your feet. Your heartbeat echoes like a drum in your ears. Soldiers around you tremble, shields shaking in their hands. And across the valley stands a giant, towering, armored, roaring a challenge that no one dares answer. Every warrior steps back. Every leader hesitates. Every voice falls silent. Except one. A boy, young, unknown, unnoticed, steps forward, not with armor, not with a sword, but with a sling, a stone, and a faith that doesn't make sense to anyone watching. This is not the story of a perfect man. This is the story of a shepherd whose courage shaped a kingdom, a warrior who fought battles bigger than giants, a king who rose, fell, and rose again, a man whose faith carved his name into history. This is the story of David.
Our story begins not in the grandeur of palaces or the halls of kings, but in the quiet, rolling hills of Bethlehem, a place where life moves slowly, at the rhythm of the earth itself. The morning sun stretches over the fields, painting everything in gold and amber. The air smells of dew, grass, and the faint, musky scent of sheep. Birds take flight across the horizon, their wings slicing the sky, while the wind whispers secrets through olive trees and wildflowers. Among these hills wanders a boy named David, young, small in stature, unassuming to most. Yet there is something in him that commands attention. Not his size, not his strength, but the spark in his eyes, the courage in his heart, the unshakable faith that seems far too large for someone so young. David's days are simple, yet they are filled with challenges. He tends to his father's flocks, leading the sheep through rocky pastures and shaded valleys. He must be alert, for danger lurks in every shadow. A lion could be prowling just beyond the ridge. A bear might emerge from the forest to strike. And when it does, David does not flee. He fights. With nothing but courage, with nothing but instinct, he defends the helpless creatures under his care. His hands, though small, strike with precision. His mind, though young, calculates every movement. He is a protector, a shepherd, a warrior in the simplest, truest sense of the word. But David's bravery is not the only remarkable thing about him. In the quiet moments, when the sun dips low and paints the sky in shades of pink and purple, he lifts his voice in song. Psalms pour from his lips, hymns written in the solitude of the hills, songs of wonder, of longing, of faith. The stars witness his prayers, and the wind carries them across the valley. It is here, in the fields, that David's heart is tested, honed, and shaped. Here, away from eyes that see only his smallness, he begins to grow into the man he is destined to become. To the world, he is insignificant, the youngest son in a family of many, a boy almost invisible among older brothers who are stronger, taller, more imposing. People walk past him without noticing. But destiny has a strange and mysterious way of finding those the world overlooks. One day, a stranger arrives in Bethlehem. He moves with purpose, his eyes carrying the weight of divine knowledge. This is the prophet Samuel. Old and wise, yet still sharp and vigilant. He has been sent by God with the sacred mission to find the next king of Israel. A king not chosen for outward appearance, not selected for power or status, but for the purity of heart, the courage to lead, the faith to follow God above all else.
Jesse, David's father, gathers his sons. One by one, they step forward. They are tall, muscular, commanding, sons who seem, at first glance, made for greatness. Samuel examines them, his eyes piercing beneath the surface, searching for what truly matters. And one by one, he shakes his head. No, not this one. Not this one either. Time seems to stretch, thick with tension. Finally, Samuel looks at Jesse, his gaze steady, almost impatient. "Are these all your sons?" he asks. Jesse hesitates. He knows there is one more, but his words falter. "Well, there is one more," he admits quietly. "The youngest, David. He is out in the fields, tending the sheep." The boy no one thought important, the one who had blended into the hills and the dust of everyday life, is suddenly the only one chosen. David is summoned. He walks into the room, dusty from the fields, humble, smelling faintly of hay and earth. There is no cloak of royalty, no crown, no grand fanfare, only the quiet presence of a boy and the weight of a destiny he cannot yet understand. Samuel looks at him, eyes softening with recognition. "This is the one," he says, and with oil poured over his head, David is anointed, not with fanfare, but with a sacred certainty. The future king of Israel has been chosen. Yet nothing in David's life changes immediately. The hills still call him back. The sheep still need tending. His songs still rise to the stars each night. Destiny does not always announce itself with drums and trumpets. Sometimes it begins quietly, in the fields, in the shadows, in moments of unseen courage. And so David returns to his world. The same hills, the same quiet fields, the same nights filled with music and prayer. Yet something has shifted. Though he still walks among sheep, he now carries within him the weight of a calling far greater than himself. Every stone he lifts, every song he sings, every battle he faces, small or great, becomes a step toward the destiny that awaits. This is where it begins. A boy unnoticed by the world, destined to shake kingdoms, topple giants, and carve his name into the annals of history. The journey of David, the shepherd, the warrior, the king, is only just beginning.
War has broken out across the valley of Elah. On one hill, the Israelite army stands, their armor gleaming under the unforgiving sun, but their hearts heavy with fear. The men shift nervously, whispering to one another, unsure who will step forward. Doubt hangs thick in the air, mingling with the smell of sweat, leather, and earth. Across the valley, the Philistine army towers, confident, brutal, relentless. At their forefront stands a figure so terrifying that even the bravest soldiers falter at the sight. His name is Goliath, a giant among men, clad in bronze from head to toe, with a spear taller than any Israelite warrior and a roar that echoes like thunder across the hills. Each day he steps forward, stomping the earth, his presence alone shaking the courage from men's hearts. "Send someone to fight me," he bellows. "If he wins, we will be your servants. If I win, you will serve us." But no one moves. Not a single soldier dares. Not one leader steps forward. Not even King Saul, the man anointed to guide Israel, finds the courage to answer the challenge. The valley falls silent, except for the echo of Goliath's mocking voice. And then a boy arrives, not as a soldier, not as a warrior, not even as someone seeking glory. David walks into the camp carrying provisions for his brothers, loaves of bread, cheese, and supplies for the front lines. Dust clings to his clothes, and the scent of the fields follows him like a loyal shadow. But when he hears the giant's voice and sees the trembling of Israel's men, something awakens inside him, a fire, a boldness that will not be ignored. His eyes narrow, his heartbeat steadies. "Who is this giant?" David asks, his voice clear and sharp, "that he should defy the armies of the living God?" Laughter ripples through the soldiers. His brothers scold him. "Stay out of this, boy. "You know nothing of battle," they hiss. Some shake their heads in disbelief. Some whisper that he is foolish, naive, reckless. But David cannot stay silent, not when God's honor is at stake. Word of his words reaches King Saul, who summons the boy. Saul looks at him and sees only youth, inexperience, and a body too small to stand against a seasoned warrior. David does not shrink. He speaks with the quiet confidence of someone who has faced death and survived, someone who knows what courage feels like in the bones. "I have defended my father's sheep from lions and bears. The Lord saved me then, and he will save me now." Saul hesitates. He weighs the odds, but he sees the light in David's eyes. Reluctantly, he allows the boy to fight. David steps onto the battlefield, alone. The wind whips around him, carrying the scent of dust and fear. Across the valley, Goliath laughs. The sound is like a rolling boulder, mocking and cruel. "Am I a dog that you come to me with sticks?"
But David's voice does not waver. Calm, steady, resolute. "You come to me with sword and spear, but I come to you in the name of the Lord of heaven's armies, the God of Israel, whom you have defied." The world seems to hold its breath. David runs, swift and determined. His sling swings above his head, a simple weapon in the hands of one who knows its power. He picks a stone, smooth and perfect, a pebble no one would give a second thought, and with the precision of a hand guided by destiny, he releases it. Time stretches. The stone cuts through the air like a comet. Goliath moves, but too late. The stone strikes his forehead with unerring accuracy. The giant falters. Shock spreads across his massive face. His knees buckle, and with a thundering crash, he falls, shaking the valley. Silence follows. For a moment, the world holds its breath. Then the Israelite army erupts, their cries of triumph breaking the spell of fear. David, the shepherd boy, stands victorious, unarmed but unstoppable. In a single moment, he becomes a warrior, a hero, and a symbol of faith that refuses to be intimidated by size, power, or fear. The story of David and Goliath spreads like wildfire. Songs are sung, tales are told, and from that day forward, one simple truth echoes across generations. It is not the strength of the man, but the courage of the heart and the faith in God that determines victory. And so, a boy who once tended sheep among quiet hills is now a figure whose name will be remembered forever. This is the moment when the shepherd met the giant, and the world witnessed what faith, courage, and destiny combined can achieve.
David's triumph over Goliath spreads like wildfire. Overnight, the boy who once walked among the sheep becomes a national hero. Songs are composed in his honor, sung from the hills to the valleys, carried by travelers and echoed in the marketplaces. Children run through the streets, shouting his name, waving sticks as if they too could wield a sling and strike down giants. Women dance in celebration, their voices rising in praise, their joy filling homes and hearts alike. The nation sees him as a champion, a symbol of hope, courage, and the impossible made real. Yet, not everyone rejoices. King Saul, once a proud and confident ruler, feels a shadow growing within his own heart. He watches as the people flock to David, their admiration and loyalty shifting in ways he cannot control. At first, Saul welcomes him, seeing in David a faithful servant, a brave soldier, a protector of Israel. But admiration can twist into fear. Fear can twist into envy. And envy can turn a king's heart dark. Saul's eyes narrow each time he hears David's name. His hands, once steady on the throne, now tremble with uncertainty. The songs of celebration that fill Israel's streets begin to sound like accusations in his ears. A boy, a mere boy, has captured the heart of the nation, a boy whose courage surpasses his own. In a moment that will haunt David's memory forever, Saul's fear erupts into violence. A spear is hurled in his direction, the weapon spinning through the air with deadly intent. But David's instincts, honed through years of defending flocks from predators, save him. He ducks, and the spear clatters against the wall. Saul's trust, once a shield, is now a sword pointing toward David's life. From that day, David's world shifts. The boy who walked freely among the hills now becomes a fugitive. The shadows become his allies, the caves his refuge, the forests and deserts his home. Every step must be measured, every movement calculated. The threat of Saul's obsession hangs over him like a storm cloud, unrelenting, always ready to strike.
The wilderness stretches endlessly, a tapestry of rugged hills, jagged rocks, and shadowed caves. David moves through it like a ghost, silent and careful, every step measured, every breath controlled. Saul's pursuit is relentless, a shadow that never lifts, a storm that follows him day and night. Every rustle in the brush, every distant shout, every crack of a branch sends his heart racing. The fugitive life is harsh, lonely, and unforgiving, but it is here, in these shadows, that David's character is forged. Twice, the hand of destiny places Saul directly within David's reach. Twice, David is faced with a choice that could define the man he will become. The first comes in a cave, dark and silent, where David and his men hide, crouched among boulders. Saul enters unknowingly, exhausted from the relentless pursuit. The king's armor glints in the dim light, and his breath comes in heavy, uneven gasps. David's men whisper urgently, their voices trembling with awe and fear. God has delivered him into your hands. Strike now. This is your chance. David's hand tightens around his dagger. The world seems to hold its breath. Every instinct screams, justice is here, vengeance is yours, the threat is gone, strike while you can. His heart pounds a drum echoing in the silent cave, yet even in the face of opportunity, something inside him holds fast. He steps closer, his eyes burning with the memory of the hunts he survived, meet Saul's sleeping face. Vulnerable, human, mortal. And suddenly David sees what he had not seen before. Saul, flawed and fearful, is still God's chosen king. A voice rises in his chest, quiet but unwavering. I will not harm the one God has placed as king. The dagger falls to the stone floor with a soft clatter, and David retreats into the shadows. The moment passes, and Saul leaves the cave, oblivious to the mercy that has spared him. David's men stare, awestruck, some whispering prayers of astonishment, others shaking their heads, unable to comprehend the restraint their leader has shown. The second moment comes under the cover of night. Saul sleeps in his camp, exhausted, unarmed, the moonlight spilling across his armor. David approaches silently with his men, each step heavy with temptation and opportunity. Again the king is within reach, helpless and exposed. Now is the time, his men urge. Strike! God has given him into your hands.
But David stops. He kneels quietly, feeling the cool earth beneath his knees and the silence of the night pressing around him. He listens to the wind rustling the tents, to the faint breathing of the sleeping men, and he thinks, not of revenge, not of fear, not of the countless days spent fleeing, but of the God who has guided him from the hills of Bethlehem to the wilderness of Judah. He could end Saul's life with a single motion.
The kingdom could be his. No one would stop him. But David chooses the path no one else would: mercy. He walks away, leaving Saul untouched, allowing him to live another day. In a world where fear breeds violence, David chooses honor. In a season of betrayal, he chooses integrity. In a moment when revenge seems justified, he chooses mercy. These decisions do more than save Saul. They shape David's soul. They set him apart from kings who rule by fear, from warriors who lead by force, from men who allow jealousy and rage to govern their lives. David learns that true courage is not only measured in victories over enemies, but in restraint, in the ability to rise above anger, in the quiet power of faith and conscience. In the caves and forests, in the night under a blanket of stars, David reflects on his journey. He remembers tending sheep in the hills, writing psalms beneath the quiet sky, fighting lions and bears with nothing but faith and courage. Now, surrounded by danger and betrayal, those early lessons take on new meaning. Mercy, he understands, is not weakness, it is strength. Patience, not cowardice, it is wisdom. And honor, not revenge, it is power. David's choices teach his men as well. The outcasts, the fugitives, the broken souls who have joined him witness his restraint and learn loyalty, discipline, and faith. They see that true leadership is not demanded, it is earned through character. Through him, they see that the hand of God can guide even the smallest and most vulnerable to greatness. And so, in the darkness of the wilderness, David's legacy begins to take shape, not through crowns, not through armies, not through battles alone, but through the quiet, steadfast strength of his heart. Every step in the shadows, every decision to spare rather than strike, every act of mercy against a world that expects vengeance strengthens him. It prepares him for the crown that will one day rest on his head, for the kingdom that will need a king with both courage and conscience, and for the history that will remember not only the warrior, but the man. In the silence between heartbeats, in the solitude of caves and the chill of the night, David learns the most important lesson of all. True greatness is measured not by how many enemies you defeat, but by the mercy you show when victory is within your grasp.
Among the tribes, like a shadow over the hills, David moves with deliberate care, blending diplomacy with strength, mercy with authority. His first major challenge is Jerusalem, a city caught between Philistine control and Israelite claim. With strategic brilliance and faith in God's guidance, David conquers the city and establishes it as the capital, a neutral ground that will serve as the political and spiritual heart of the kingdom. But conquest is only part of leadership. David understands that a king's power is nothing without loyalty and unity. He strengthens his army, not merely with weapons and armor, but by inspiring devotion. Soldiers who once fought under different banners now march as one, bound not by fear, but by respect for a leader who has proven himself in the wilderness, in battle, and through restraint. He trains them, counsels them, and shares in their hardships, earning trust that no decree or command could ever buy. David's reign is also marked by a profound spiritual vision. He brings the Ark of the Covenant to Jerusalem, uniting the people not only politically, but spiritually. The procession is magnificent. Priests carrying the Ark, trumpets sounding, the air thick with incense and anticipation. And David, stripped of pretense, dances before it with abandon, not as a king seeking acclaim, but as a servant of God expressing unfiltered devotion. He laughs, he sings, he rejoices, and the time flows relentlessly. And the shadows of the past linger over the land of Israel. Saul's reign, once mighty and feared, comes to a tragic end. His jealousy, corrosive and blinding, ultimately leads him and his sons into a battle they cannot win. The battlefield is littered with the fallen, the cries of the wounded and dying echoing across the hills. Israel mourns deeply, not just for a king, but for the fragility of peace and the loss of life that comes from envy and fear. In this grief, the people look for a new leader. The nation needs a man of courage, a man of steady heart, a man who can rise above vengeance, a man who can unite the divided tribes. They need a shepherd king. And in the midst of uncertainty and mourning, David emerges, a man tempered by years of exile, tested by relentless danger, and guided by unwavering faith. David is first crowned over Judah, the tribe of his ancestry, the people who know his heart and the story of his courage. Then one by one, the remaining tribes acknowledge him as king over all Israel. The boy who once wandered the hills of Bethlehem tending sheep, writing psalms under the stars, and fighting lions and bears, now steps into destiny. The crown is placed upon his head, a symbol of power. But for David, it is more than that. It is a mantle of responsibility, a calling that demands wisdom, courage, and integrity. From the very first days of his reign, David works to heal a divided nation. Israel has been fractured by years of rivalry and fear. Distrust lingers. People see a leader whose power is matched by humility, whose authority is rooted in faith. At the height of his glory, David is many things simultaneously: a visionary leader, a warrior feared by enemies, a king loved by his people, and a man deeply aware of his humanity.
Yet, even in the midst of triumph, he is not untouched by the struggles of life. Political challenges arise, rival factions emerge, and the weight of governance presses heavily on his shoulders. The crown, once a distant dream in the hills of Bethlehem, now carries the full burden of history, expectation, and responsibility. David's personal life is also filled with complexity. He experiences joy and loss, loyalty and betrayal, moments of profound faith, and moments of human weakness. Yet through it all, the lessons learned in the wilderness, mercy over vengeance, faith over fear, courage over intimidation, remain his guiding principles. These lessons shape his decisions as king and define the legacy he will leave behind. He continues to lead not just through might, but through example. He listens to the people, cares for the poor and the exiled, encourages justice, and ensures that the laws of the land reflect mercy and righteousness. His victories in battle extend beyond the battlefield. They bring stability, security, and hope to a people long accustomed to fear and division. In every corner of Israel, from the stone streets of Jerusalem to the distant villages where shepherds still tend their flocks, the name of David is spoken with reverence. He is remembered not merely as the king who conquered, but as the shepherd who never forgot the sheep, the warrior who never lost his faith, the man who showed mercy when vengeance would have been easier. And yet, David remains deeply human. He experiences doubt, grief, and the weight of responsibility. He celebrates victories, mourns losses, and prays for guidance under the vast, starry skies that once witnessed a boy writing psalms in the quiet hills of Bethlehem. In his heart, he knows that leadership is not about power alone, but about courage, compassion, and the strength to remain faithful to God and to the people he serves. This is David at last, a king who has fulfilled the promise whispered in the fields of Bethlehem, a warrior whose courage inspires generations, and a man whose life embodies faith, mercy, and the relentless pursuit of destiny. His story is not perfect.
He is human, after all, but it is extraordinary. From shepherd to giant slayer, from fugitive to king, from exile to ruler, David's journey reminds us that true greatness is born in the wilderness of trial, shaped by courage, defined by mercy, and sustained by faith. And as he stands in the palace of Jerusalem, looking over a nation united, David understands that the crown is not the pinnacle. It is a continuation. The responsibility is immense, the burdens heavy. But the heart that once trusted God in the quiet hills, that faced lions, bears, and giants, and that chose mercy in the darkness, now carries the weight of a kingdom. And with that heart, David will lead Israel into an era of strength, faith, and enduring legacy.
At the height of his reign, David's kingdom gleams like a jewel. Jerusalem flourishes under his guidance. Israel's borders are secure. The people rejoice in peace and prosperity. The shepherd, who once wandered the hills of Bethlehem, is now a king whose name echoes across the land. His victories in battle, his wisdom in leadership, and his devotion to God have earned him a place among the most celebrated figures in history. Yet even the greatest of men are human, and the heart, no matter how courageous, is vulnerable to temptation. One evening, as the sun sets over the city and the golden light spills across the palace walls, David walks upon the roof of his palace. The air is warm, the city beneath him calm, the sounds of celebration in the streets drifting upward. And then, his eyes fall upon Bathsheba, a woman of beauty, grace, and presence. Desire, a subtle whisper at first, grows into longing, and longing soon clouds judgment. Temptation, left unchecked, turns into action. David summons Bathsheba, and the choice he makes in that moment sets into motion a chain of consequences that will shake his heart, his household, and his kingdom. Bathsheba becomes pregnant. David, consumed by fear and shame, wrestles with the enormity of what he has done. Pride and desperation cloud his mind, and he makes decisions that bring tragedy. To cover his wrongdoing, David sends Uriah, Bathsheba's husband, to the front lines of battle, placing him in the deadliest positions, ensuring his death. The loyal soldier falls, and with him, David's conscience shatters under the weight of guilt. The same heart that once faced lions, bears, and giants without fear is now crushed by grief and remorse. The man who commanded armies, inspired loyalty, and led with vision cannot escape the consequences of his own sin. The kingdom feels the tremors of David's actions. Fear, sorrow, and uncertainty ripple through the people. Whispers circulate, and tensions rise. Even a king's power cannot undo the pain caused by personal failings. David walks the palace halls in silence, staring at the stone floors, reflecting on the choices that have brought him here. Nights are sleepless. Days are heavy with regret. He prays, yet even prayer feels distant, weighed down by shame. Then comes Nathan, the prophet, fearless and unwavering. He approaches David not with accusation, but with a story, a parable, simple yet piercing. Nathan tells of a rich man who takes from the poor, of injustice and violation, of a moral wrong that cries for justice. David listens, and in that moment the story becomes a mirror. He sees himself, the sin, the deception, the lives shattered by his decisions. For the first time in years, David's pride crumbles completely. There are no excuses,
No justifications, no anger at circumstance, only recognition, only acknowledgement, only the raw, unflinching truth. He falls to his knees, tears streaming down his face, his body shaking as the weight of sin presses down on him. Create in me a clean heart, O God. He cries, his voice breaking with desperation. Renew a right spirit within me. The prayer is more than words. It is a surrender. A surrender of ego, of pride, of control. David confronts his brokenness head-on, admitting the depth of his failure, accepting responsibility, and seeking restoration. This is the true test of his character. It is far easier to conquer enemies or command armies than to face oneself. Yet David does so fully and unflinchingly.
In the darkness of repentance, David discovers an extraordinary truth. Failure does not define a life. Humility restores him. Faith sustains him. Courage is not only in the battlefield, but in the willingness to bend, to admit wrong, and to seek forgiveness. His heart, though wounded, is renewed. The consequences of his sin remain. Lives are changed, hearts are broken, and trust must be rebuilt. Yet David embraces the challenge with the same courage that carried him through the wilderness, the same resilience that allowed him to face Goliath unarmed, and the same faith that guided him as a fugitive. He continues to lead Israel, now tempered by experience, humbled by mistakes, and strengthened by repentance. Through this period, David writes psalms that will echo through the ages, songs born not only of joy and victory, but of sorrow, regret, and the longing for God's mercy. Each word carries the weight of his journey, from shepherd to king, from sinner to penitent, from fallen man to redeemed leader. His music, prayers, and reflections teach the people that even the mighty are human, that even the favorite of God must wrestle with sin, and that redemption is always possible when humility and faith guide the heart. David's life illustrates a paradox. True greatness is not the absence of failure, but the ability to rise above it. It is in the moments of brokenness that his character shines most brightly. Not the sling, not the crown, not the battlefield, but the willingness to return to God, to seek a clean heart, and to continue leading with integrity, courage, and faith. In the quiet of the night, beneath a sky full of stars that once witnessed his youthful prayers and psalms, David kneels, vulnerable yet unbroken. And in that humility, in that deep, authentic repentance, he demonstrates that even the most powerful of kings are measured not by the victories they claim, but by the grace they accept, the mercy they show, and the faith that sustains them in both triumph and failure. This is David at his most human, his most extraordinary, a man who has faced giants, kings, and enemies, yet also confronted his own heart, acknowledged his sins, and found redemption. A man whose life teaches that failure does not destroy a soul, but that humility, repentance, and unwavering faith can restore it, and that the strength to rise after falling is the true mark of greatness. The years pass like a gentle river, carrying the kingdom of Israel through seasons of prosperity, challenge, and growth. David, now older, walks the halls of his palace with a quiet dignity. The once youthful warrior who faced lions, bears, and giants has been tempered by time, experience, and the trials of leadership. His hair may have silvered, his steps slowed, but his mind remained sharp, his heart still guided by faith, and his vision as clear as it was on the hills of Bethlehem. David's days are no longer consumed by the urgency of battle or the thrill of conquest. Instead, they are devoted to preparation and instruction, preparing a nation for a future he may never witness firsthand. He oversees the gathering of materials for the great temple, a sanctuary that will stand as a testament to God's presence among His people. Every stone, every cedar beam, every artifact of gold and silver is chosen with care, imbued with His vision of a house of worship that will honor God for generations to come. Even more importantly, David invests his wisdom in his son, Solomon. He instructs him not only in the matters of governance and strategy, but in the subtle art of leadership, justice tempered with mercy, courage guided by faith, authority balanced by humility. He warns Solomon of the weight of the crown, the dangers of pride, and the importance of listening to God's voice above all else. David knows that a kingdom is only as strong as the hearts of those who lead it, and he pours every ounce of his experience into preparing his son to carry the torch of leadership forward. In the quiet of his chambers, David reflects on a life that has been anything but ordinary. He remembers the hills of Bethlehem, the quiet nights tending sheep under a canopy of stars. He remembers the giant Goliath, the fearsome battles, the years on the run, and the times he chose mercy when vengeance seemed easier. He recalls the failures that shook him to his core, Bathsheba, Uriah, the lessons learned in repentance, and how each moment of brokenness shaped him into a man capable of leading a nation. He thinks of the victories, too, the unification of Israel, the triumphs on the battlefield, the joyous return of the Ark of the Covenant, and the people who danced and sang alongside him. He sees the faces of those who followed him faithfully, those who found hope in his leadership, and those who learned from both his courage and his humility. As he lies on his bed, surrounded by the quiet of the palace and the soft glow of the evening sun, David understands that life is a tapestry of triumphs and failures, joys and sorrows, victories and regrets. His legacy is not measured by the crown he wears, the battles he has won, or the palace he inhabits, but by the hearts he has touched, the faith he has modeled, and the life he has lived in service to God and His people. Even as death approaches, David remains steadfast in faith. He prays not for more years or greater glory, but for the continued strength of the nation he loves, for the wisdom of his son, and for the enduring presence of God's guidance over Israel. His thoughts are filled not with fear, but with gratitude for the life he has lived, for the challenges that shaped him, and for the God who never left his side, even in the darkest caves, the loneliest nights, and the heaviest storms.
And then, in his final moments, David does what he has done throughout his life. He entrusts the future to God and to those he is prepared to lead. He leaves behind more than a throne or a kingdom. He leaves a legacy of worship, courage, leadership, repentance, and faith. The Psalms he wrote, the lessons he taught, the mercy he showed, and the heart he displayed in both victory and failure will echo across generations. David's life is a story of the human spirit at its fullest, a man who was brave yet vulnerable, powerful yet humble, victorious yet repentant, a man who faced giants and kings alike, yet knew that the greatest battles were fought within the heart. His legacy continues to inspire millions around the world, reminding us that courage is measured not only in what we conquer, but in how we rise after falling. That leadership is not simply the power to command, but the wisdom to guide with integrity. And that faith can carry even the most flawed among us to greatness. As the sun sets over Jerusalem for the final time in David's life, the city he shaped, the nation he united, and the God he worshipped, all bear witness to a remarkable journey. From shepherd to giant slayer, fugitive to king, sinner to penitent, David's story closes not with the end of life, but with the eternal echo of a heart fully devoted, a life fully lived, and a legacy that will endure forever.
The story of David reminds us that greatness is never measured by strength alone. It is measured by the heart. A humble shepherd can rise to become a king. A young boy can face a giant and win. A sinner can be restored. A broken man can rise stronger than ever. David's life teaches us that your past does not define you. Your failures are not the end of your story. And your destiny is never out of reach when your heart is set on something greater than yourself. This is the journey of David, the shepherd, the warrior, the king, the poet, the man after God's own heart. If David's story inspires you, don't forget to subscribe and join us for more epic journeys of courage, faith, and destiny. Your adventure is just beginning.